Welcome back, true believers and all you merry Marvelites, to another very interesting and actually pretty important Marvel's Avengers related video. Another face cam, in-depth discussion related video, one-on-one talk about the game, because there is actually a lot to talk about recently. There is currently going on is another gaming convention in London, I believe, called EGX, where I did a video about that, discussing that they could show possible new footage of the game at this convention in London. It's the first time people can actually get their hands on the game in London. And then they said that there's going to be a Sony stage show, and then tomorrow is going to be a live stage Q&A presentation about the game, where they are going to answer questions related to the fans and what they're wondering about what's going to be featured in the game. And today we got nothing. It was just more A-Day, same thing that we got in the previous conventions, and the Kamala Khan trailer was shown again from New York Comic Con, that same trailer, and that was it. For the Sony stage show, at least. Now, tomorrow, it could be something different with this live stage show Q&A at EGX, but I doubt it, considering that they are not going to probably show anything major at this Q&A, just probably answer some questions that people are a bit concerned about, like, is the game open world? No, there's multiple hub worlds that you can explore, but still, if you're looking forward to possible information from the game at EGX, keep your eyes peeled during the live Q&A tomorrow. But today, we do have some information from a couple of places, which are actually interesting because they do relate to the next generation consoles with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Scarlet, or the Project Scarlet that's coming out for Xbox and Microsoft, and also some info from a GameSpot article which kind of puts things in a better perspective relating to the Kamala Khan situation, or scenario where she's the main protagonist of the game. Of course, you'll be able to play as the other Avengers: Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, most likely Hawkeye and Ant-Man, of course. But the main protagonist of the whole story, like the developers have confirmed previously, and what we know of and what we've seen and what we know in the story trailer, she's narrating all these previous trailers, is that Kamala Khan is the core central character that's going to be driving the story forward, reassembling the Avengers, bringing them back together to take down AIM, and defeating the ever-growing threats that will be going in for years to come. So that's the basics of what we know about the game so far. But there is some information from these other news sites, which is pretty interesting. And I will leave a link in the description for all of them, one of which is an interview on YouTube from a YouTube channel named Hot97. He did a great job interviewing Scott Amos, Vince Napoli, and one of the writers of the game, just basically asking some questions about how the gameplay is going to work and what went into making the story. All great stuff, but there is some information which I do find very important regarding some gameplay aspects about the game. First off is that, like we know already, the PlayStation 4 system for Marvel's Avengers is going to come with early beta access a whole week prior to any other console that gamers can get their hands on for the beta before anyone else on the PS4. So that's a huge win, and also exclusive benefits to be revealed in the future. We know this already. Is it Spider-Man? Is it whatever? I don't know what it is, but we are going to wait until we actually receive more information about that, which will be revealed in the future. Hopefully sometime next year before the game comes out in May. I would like to know about what it actually is. But speaking of PlayStation itself, is that we already know from Sony directly that the PlayStation 5 is releasing holiday 2020. And then the Avengers project is coming out May 15th, 2020, so there's a kind of a time gap. So it's going to release in the middle of the year, essentially, for Avengers with May 2020, and then there's going to be a little bit of brief time, and then, boom, the PlayStation 5 comes out the end of that year. But apparently what the interviewer asked, and what the developers answered during this interview, is whether or not they have actually made the game operable, able to work for the next-gen consoles, like what they have in store for the future, considering that the next-gen consoles are pretty close, and, they're coming sooner and sooner, and these higher-tier games are being developed for those platforms. And even though it is going to be a current-gen game on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and Google Stadia, they did say that Marvel's Avengers will receive enhancements on the PlayStation 5 compared to any other platform. So that's very exciting. And again, they're kind of doubling down on this whole PlayStation deal, which I find very intriguing. Again, does that connect to Spider-Man PS4? I don't know. But apparently what they've been saying and what all the other conventions have been showing is that the demo has been playable on the PlayStation platform, which indicates to me that the best experience that you could possibly get for the game with the most content, the best, operating power is on PlayStation. Of course, the PC is probably going to have a lot more visual fidelity going in with a lot more graphics power and all that compared to the other platforms. But I really do think that the PlayStation has something here, and if the PS4 is any indication of what we can expect with Spider-Man PS4, I'm sure that the game is going to run just fine on that platform and then run even better on the PS5. Sadly, there have been people saying that there's a lot of frame drops happening during the demo, the A-Day demo on the PS4 that they've been able to play at certain conventions, and we have seen that sadly in the character profile trailers with the kind of frame drops in the Hulk and Iron Man showcases. So hopefully by the time the full game is finished, the frames will be able to operate properly. There won't be any lag or anything like that, especially when you're playing online with co-op. So PS5, PS4, I think that would be the console of choice. I mean, the main three consoles, Xbox, PlayStation, or Switch, but it's not on the Switch, or PC, of course, if you're wanting to go that route for the best experience possible, and Stadia, which, you could if you want to, but I have a lot of confidence in the Stadia as of right now. But still, it's nice to know that there are going to be a lot of benefits tailored to Marvel's Avengers, graphic-wise, for the next-gen console on the PS5 in the future, which I find very intriguing. And also, alongside of that, we also have kind of slight confirmation, but heavy teases, basically, from the developers within the same interview from the same person on YouTube, Hot97, basically indicating that there will not be any playable villains in the game, which I wasn't expecting anyways, and team moves, which is something that I'm actually very interested in, is will you be able to do like the iconic team-up moves that we've seen in the comics and the cartoons and the movies with the Avengers during co-op? Of course, I'm expecting that to happen during the story, like what we've seen in that one sequence where Thor and Iron Man look like they're about to team up to save a helicarrier from being crashed. In the A-Day demo, all the Avengers are trying to stop stuff from falling off the Golden Gate Bridge, but we've never seen them combat with each other. We've never seen them fight together to take on the enemies, at least not yet. So I'm wondering, are we going to be able to do the iconic move where Thor slams Mjolnir on Captain America's shield and it creates a huge shockwave, or the scene from the first Avengers movie and even teased in Civil War where Iron Man shoots his repulsors off of Captain America's shield and creates like a huge explosion around him, similar to the team-up moves that we've seen in Ultimate Alliance and also, sad to say it, but also Lego Marvel. There have also been team-up moves in Lego Marvel and the Ultimate Alliance games. And I think for an Avengers game on this huge AAA setting and this scale, I would expect team-up moves. I think that's a necessity that you gotta have within a game like this, and it's nice to know that they were heavily teasing it during the interview. They basically say, like, I gotta watch out for our PR guys, basically, so that's what Vince Napoli was saying, the lead combat designer for the game. And I think that is a huge need for a game like this. I mean, imagine teaming up with your friends. You see a bunch of AIM soldiers coming right towards you. You're low on health. You have all your superpowers wasted, like you used your support, assault, and ultimate ability. They're all recharging still. You're about to die, but oh wait, your friend comes in as Thor. You're playing as Captain America. You combine your powers together and then just obliterate everyone in your path. That would be great. And I think that if more heroes are added, there's a ton of possibilities with how many heroes can combine their powers together to form these team-up attacks. Hulk could possibly throw Black Widow into the fray and try and take out everyone at once. Who knows? Like, there's a bunch of possibilities that you can do with the core 5 that we know of right now, as well as Ant-Man, Kamala Khan, Hawkeye, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. There's all these possibilities, and I think for a huge game like this, with co-op that is lasting for years to come, for missions and gameplay sequences that will want you to keep playing, I feel like this would be a core factor of gameplay that you would want to see be expanded upon, with new super moves to do, new team-up moves to explore, new upgrades to unlock to make them more powerful. It just makes sense, and I was actually concerned whether or not they would do that in this type of game, but considering this interview, it does sound like they are going to be in there. It's not officially confirmed, but it is heavily teased, and I'm very excited about that. So, with that main interview out of the way, with some very exciting information about the game getting enhanced on the PS5, no playable villains, which again, I wasn't expecting at all, and team-up moves heavily teased in the game, which is all great stuff. We're now moving on to a very interesting article from GameSpot, where they did interview Scott Amos, the head of the Crystal Dynamics studio, basically getting a better perspective as to how the game is as of right now. You know, everything we know about it, of course, with A-Day, co-op, grinding for gear, hero missions, Warzone missions, all this stuff with customization, with microtransactions for specific skins. We know all this. We know everything. If you've been watching my videos or if you've been researching the game yourself, you know what's going on. We all know at this point. But the GameSpot article does do an interesting job, and it's really long. Like, it's almost like an essay long. It should just be a normal interview video if it's going to be this long. But they break down everything that's been basically discussed so far, but I'm only going to point out the highlights, which I find the most interesting, discussing about Kamala Khan's involvement in the game, how it became that way, like for the story, and also something very interesting about heroes down the line, like the other heroes we know, which will be added for free, new heroes, new regions to be added, which will include new hero missions, new Warzone missions, again, new upgrades, all this stuff that we know on a free, regular basis for years to come. But they do a good job asking Scott these questions and trying to break down certain specific pieces about the game and what fans can expect in the near future and what it means for the game as a whole and what players can expect going into it at launch on May 15th, 2020 and how much content there's going to be. So I will leave a link to it in the description if you want to read the full thing because it is a lengthy article. But basically the interviewer asks a plethora of questions about different aspects about the game, and they do kind of analyze it first with this first question saying, GameSpot asks Scott Amos, "You're pitching Avengers as an original story, but I feel like it's almost impossible to make a comic book game without pulling least inspiration from somewhere. Can you talk about the touchstones you were drawing upon?" And then they basically go over the characters that are super iconic, you know, Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, but we also have a fresh individual, you know, a character that's pretty new within the Marvel Universe of Kamala Khan, since she was introduced in 2013, who's a new face to the Marvel lore, and they thought she would be a core character that they could use as a story beat which players can connect with. And to analyze a specific point from Scott's answer, because he does answer it in multiple ways, he says, "So for us, we've had this amazing capacity to look through all of that and say, what's going to tell the best story? And the elements we want for that great story is a point of view or perspective character that people can relate to, that believes in these Avengers as a fan of them, that actually is trying to figure out their own path of becoming a hero, which is exactly where Kamala fits into our world as that point of view perspective character for the campaign. And also, we do know that you're going to be able to play as the other characters. Like, again, like we said, Iron Man's going to be going through his depression phase. Hulk is trapped in his Hulk body because he can't get over the guilt of A-Day. Cap's dead, Black Widow's her own spy, and Thor quit being Thor. So the person to bring them back together is Kamala Khan, who is going to try and rejuvenate the team to try and take down this new threat of AIM and all this. But we also have kind of a very interesting answer from that, basically saying, what is going to happen with that. And they say, there are 9,000 some heroes in the Marvel Universe, 80 years of history. Have all the stories been told? No. Like, that's the fun part about what we do at Crystal. We go to that humanity behind the hero, look at them, breaking them down, and then look at having to build the individuals up, and then reassemble the team, and then rebuild that kind of epic, legendary reputation that the Avengers need to have. So, again, they're really trying to hit home for a fact that, yeah, Kamala is going to bring them back for sure, and she's going to be the driving force of the story. Even though the focus is about the Avengers, because it's their game, Marvel's Avengers, Kamala is trying to be the focus point of the story because we're seeing it from her perspective. She's a fan. She's been a huge fan of them since she was a kid. She's a hero now with her powers from the Terrigen Mist, and how does that affect her and the Avengers as a team? And, you know, again, if it's not forced, I'll be fine with it. And again, I don't care about her ethnicity and her background and all that, and that she's a girl. Doesn't matter. If her role serves the plot in a meaningful way, that is what is important to me personally. Just like Miles Morales and Mary Jane did in Spider-Man PS4, they were playable, but the main focus of that whole story was Peter Parker and Spider-Man. So, the Avengers, it's their team, the core team, the 5 characters, But then Kamala is the main character of the whole story. So I need to see more of that and how that's going to go forward. But I just hope that they handle it in a proper way that people can get behind, and that it's told in an emotional and impactful way. We also have some very interesting discussions about the dynamics from Crystal Dynamics and what went into making the game, like from their background of making the Tomb Raider games and trying to put that into a game like Avengers and the characters that they have to deal with, because Lara Croft can't fly, but Iron Man and Thor can. So they kind of go into that, how it was a challenge for them, and also the main combat designer, Vince Napoli, who was from God of War, who made God of War's combat, and how he's making, basically polishing and really driving from the ground up every character's combat system within the game. Like, they have the main team members from Crystal Dynamics working on this game, but from what they're saying, it sounds like Vince Napoli is the guy who's basically creating everything himself, from the combat and how each character acts in every single hub world environment and how they traverse. It sounds like he and the team that he's working with at Crystal is the main force behind what we've seen so far. Whether that is a good thing or not, I don't know, but it sounds like who we can look at directly for who ends up acting in which way for combat. You know, Iron Man with his repulsors, Thor with Mjolnir, Captain America with S.H.I.E.L.D. It's mainly Vince Napoli and the core team at Crystal Dynamics working on all of that. So it's very interesting to see, and we get a bit more of a breakdown as to how that all works for each team and their involvement within the game, which I find very intriguing. And of course, they also kind of go over like post-launch content with new heroes, new skills, new gear, new outfits, new hero missions, new war zones. So again, all stuff we knew, because of course with new heroes, you're going to have new upgrades to unlock. New heroes also means new costumes to wear. It makes sense. But we also have a very interesting breakdown of the engine and the core development team that's going in with Marvel's Avengers. So the GameSpot article asks, is Avengers using the same engine you guys used for the first Tomb Raider game in 2013? And then Scott Amos responds, it is the next version of that engine. Foundation is the name of the engine. It's our proprietary tools and technology that we've been using for years. Our team has been upgrading it every time we have a new version, a new platform, new technologies. We keep adding to it and say, how do we expand upon its capabilities? It's one of our secret weapons. So, again, as a comparison, even though I hate to compare these games, but it's kind of true at this point, Spider-Man PS4. Insomniac used their own engine, the Insomniac engine, to create Spider-Man PS4. So Crystal Dynamics have their own engine to put in for the Avengers, and they're just expanding upon that to build upon it and polish it a bit more for the full game, which is very intriguing. We also have, now very important, if you're saying, well, the game looks like a mobile game, it doesn't look fully polished because it's in the pre-alpha stages, why does it look like trash? If you're someone who thinks that, even though I'm sure the gameplay will hopefully be polished by the time it releases next year, they do give a full breakdown as to who's working on what. So the interviewer asks, or states, Square Enix has a lot of studios working on this one. I'm interested in knowing how the workload is split. And then Scott Amos replies, Crystal is on point with all this. It literally started at Crystal, where we were the beginning, and so we're the largest group that is working on the game. Eidos Montreal is an amazing sister studio. We work with them for all of our Tomb Raiders. On the last Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we started with them and then we peeled off and they finished it. So they actually were the point team on Shadow of the Tomb Raider and they owned it. But they'd worked with us and all the previous ones, so they've been part and parcel to us forever. We actually had to build another studio called Crystal Northwest in Bellevue, Washington, so we actually added an entire team of technologists who were specializing in multiplayer. Guys who had actually known each other, worked together for years. Nixies is the Netherlands. Nixies in the Netherlands is a group we've worked with for 21 years now. And they're one of those teams that just know our code as well as anybody and are knee-deep in it. They also have a content team. They're now making assets for this game as well. And then you have Square Enix Japan. You know, we even have folks there working on technology and some lighting. So we literally assembled 5 studios as kind of our core teams, as our 5 core teams. And of course, Marvel Games are the publishers / producers of the Avengers project, where they have input as to what they want the story to be and all that. So now you know who's doing what. Crystal Dynamics is the main developer behind this. Just like Insomniac Games were the main developer behind Spider-Man, it's Crystal's game. published by Square Enix with little help from Eidos Montreal, and Nixie Software, I'm assuming, is helping out with the multiplayer aspects of the game. For years to come content, expansive multiplayer with co-op and your friends, so I'm assuming that is what their input is for this game. And of course, we also have a very interesting whole paragraph section about Kamala Khan as a whole. And again, like we know, that they are trying to polish the game to make it more visually intriguing for people. If it looked weird with their designs at first, they're trying to make it a little bit better and try and balance out the game with, in terms of its playability, if it's going to be repetitive or not. But mainly with Kamala Khan, I find this very important to break down for her character specifically. So the interviewer states, Kamala Khan is an inspired choice. Does her unveiling now set the tone for future character reveals? And what they mean by that is basically saying that unveiling her character for the game. But then Scott Amos states, Kamala is a freshness. She hasn't been really seen in any of the big screen ways that these other heroes have. So we have the familiarity of the amazingly loved Iron Man, some Thors and Hulks and everyone else, but then you look at Kamala, and it's one of those amazing opportunities where Marvel is like, hey guys, we think this is a great idea. It has a great relatability to it. We still have all the familiar folks, and they loved it. From the beginning of our collaboration with Marvel, we were all saying that this is the right hero at the right time. So, again, with that, I just really hope that they fully have her character in there to serve the story. Not just for representation or forced, politics or anything like that with, SJW stuff, whatever it is. I just want a good story showcasing who Kamala is in a brand new, fresh way. Because some people don't like her, not because, again, she's a girl or Muslim or whatever, it's because of her character. She's too excitable and she's a little bit irritating at times with her fangirl side of her character. And if they force that down our throats repeatedly throughout the story, or if the Avengers say that she's like the only one who can do this and no one else, and they start praising her for just being a hero and like, wow, we couldn't do this without you and all that, like, I'll start to feel a bit put off by the story. If she's put in with, realistic, mature themes and tones and stakes to the story in a very serious way, I will then appreciate her involvement in the narrative. But right now, I'm still a bit hesitant, and I really do hope that they kind of find her balance point for the game and see where she can work the best when interacting with the characters and how that's going to affect the final, boss or whoever they go up against in the ending of the game. And if the Avengers are finally a team now, with her or without her, we'll have to see. But if she's a core character, make her matter. If she's going to be the main protagonist, you got to make her feel relevant and important to the story. Not just there for filler or for, equality or all that, but actually relevant and, present with the narrative. And I think they need to do that more with actually showing that, because the trailer didn't really do too good of a job showing that. She's just kind of excited to be with the Avengers. But the behind-the-scenes video did a really interesting job with breaking down the developers and the creators' impressions of her being featured in the game, and the voice actress herself saying her involvement is very important. So they need to make sure that they do a very good job of that. Otherwise, people are not going to be fond of her character at all when playing the game. So fingers crossed that all works out for them. And basically, that's about it. They basically also say that there are other heroes to be involved in the future, like we know already, but they kind of go a little bit further down in detail with that, and the interviewer asks, I've noticed a lot of the Marvel Games projects are really emphasizing the new roster. Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, Sam Wilson, Amadeus Cho, and all those characters. Why have so many classic Avengers when there is a whole new crew being pushed? And I don't really know about this question specifically, since Sam Wilson is like an OG Avenger, and also I don't know why you would not want a game based on the classic Avengers for whatever reason this interviewer is asking. But the answer from Scott Amos is interesting and kind of gives us hope, hopefully, for what the future holds for the other heroes coming down the line. And he states, there's an expectation that we want to fulfill. That dream, the superhero fantasy dream of being the Avengers. Everybody wants to do that, and being able to do it in this big AAA way with characters that you've known and loved in different formats. There have been 80 years of heroes, but looking at the last 10 years, Marvel have done a brilliant job of bringing in people who had no idea what a Hulk was 10 years ago and are now wearing their t-shirts, right? So you have this mass audience worldwide that loves these heroes. You can't ignore that. you have to look at it and say, this is a great way to onboard people into our version of these heroes. And then you bring in the freshness with a Kamala. We have all kinds of ideas for who the future heroes would be. We love to listen to our fans. We're big fans of community. But we have some tricks up our sleeves for what's coming next and down that path. I think people will be very excited for what we have ahead of us. So, again, this is a huge AAA Avengers game with content for years to come, and people are very upset right now that all we have is the main five and Kamala Khan and Hawkeye, or Ant-Man, with no Hawkeye, no Spider-Man, no Black Panther, and no Doctor Strange. And you gotta think, they're gonna be in the game. Like, they obviously haven't confirmed that, but it just makes sense that they would add in huge characters like Doctor Strange, like Black Panther, like other Inhumans, possibly like Black Bolt, Medusa, Lockjaw, Quake. I don't know. I'm just listing names. Songbird, she's not an Inhuman, but you know what I mean. Huge tier Marvel characters in this game, and I just hope that they have a lot of variety for wanting to intrigue people to play, because the problem is, if they play the base game with just the 5 Avengers and Kamala Khan, and they don't like it from the base game, from the start, they're not going to want to come back and play as these other characters because they're not going to be fans of the game. Sure, you would excite a lot of people with Black Panther, that's a huge character, but if they know how the gameplay is, then there's not really a whole lot to see other than him just doing a couple finishing moves and some customization with his suits. And that's it. So the core game has to sell people from the start, otherwise they're not going to come back to play as these other heroes down the line. And that's my issue. That's what I'm concerned about, and that's what I hope it succeeds in, is adding in new, fresh heroes that do excite people and do want people to come back and play this game for years to come. And if that is sold off incredibly well from the get-go with the first game and A-Day and AIM and all this, then great. But right now, as you can see online in my comments section and other people's videos and all this, you know, hullabaloo discussion about the game, a lot of people are hesitant. They think it looks kind of choppy. They think the gameplay looks stale and repetitive. They're not excited to keep seeing A-Day over and over again. I agree with them. So hopefully they can actually full force have a huge roster of characters by the time like next year comes and after it's out for a while, and then they'll have a huge ton of characters that people love in the comics and the movies that they do want to play as, and then that will excite people to continuously play the game for years on. And that's what I'm hoping for happens the most. I think that's pretty much it. You know, they keep analyzing the game and the trailers and all that. Some challenges that went into making the game, and you know how it's going to go in the future with the Warzone missions and intriguing players, like we just said. Post content after the launch, you know, like after the main release on May 15th, there's going to be more down the line, like we know. So there's all this stuff that is the same information that they've talked about in several other conventions, but they do analyze it a bit more. From here, they say that they do work as much as they can, but they do want to try and, you know, take, you know, breaks from then on. They won't force people to work on the game. They'll try and just say, work on what you have to, and then if you got some occupation to deal with, like your kid's birthday, go celebrate your kid's birthday. So that's an example they use. There's also a really stupid question in here about Squirrel Girl being in the game, which, if she is, I'm gonna... I don't even want to talk about that. But basically, there's a lot of stuff to analyze in this article, but I just wanted to point out the key highlights that I personally find the most intriguing. And that's it. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Does this excite you more for the game? Are you wanting to see more other than A-Day be featured in Marvel's Avengers? What does the game have to do for you, story-wise with Kamala Khan, gameplay-wise with the co-op missions and the Warzone missions and playing with your friends? What does it have to do to hype you up? Because right now, there are some people online who are interested or even excited, but the consensus that I'm mainly seeing is that I'm done, or I've lost all hype. I'm not excited like I was for Spider-Man or like I was for, you know, even Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. You know, they're kind of like downplaying it, and it just is upsetting to see how poorly the marketing is handling this game, because it could be doing a much better job. And I really do think that if they go all out with whatever their next showcase is, then they would actually grab a lot of people back in, like, this is what's exciting me, and then they could actually get people invested in the game. So please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What does the game have to do to excite you? And until we get our next big amount of info, whenever, whatever that is. Stay merry, Marvelites. Thank you all so much for watching, and peace out.